Good afternoon. This is the JP Dinnell podcast, episode 57. I am JP Dinnell, and as always, I have Lucas with me. So you recently just gave me some pretty cool news. It's a little awkward for me.
Okay.
But it's also 100% a testament of God's blessings to this podcast.
Yep.
And the amazing support of our listeners and people interacting and sharing it with other people. We just hit 1 million YouTube views.
Yeah.
And 100,000 downloads.
Yeah.
Dude, that's unreal.
It is.
See, what's funny is like you said.
Pretty banger of a first year, man.
I mean, considering that was within, 55 weeks?
Yeah. Yep.
Dude, that's crazy.
It's been a wild ride. I was talking to some of my other podcasting producer friends, and we're in a couple of groups, and they're doing the check-in. They're like, all right, so how's everybody's year been? And they're updating, and they're like, hey, Lucas, you're being pretty quiet. And I was like, yeah.
Is it just an over-the-top number?
We've been really good. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Especially with as young as our podcast is. Okay. I mean, some of these are the folks that I'm talking to, man. They're in their fifth year, their seventh year, that's where awesome. They're finally hitting the stride, and they're just doing some of the stuff that we've done in year one.
It's crazy.
And
man.
They were like, man, that's good for you. It's like, yeah. That's why I was staying shut up, because
that's a good call.
But it was cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man.
Just also got done with the muster 20 here
Yep.
in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It was by far the best muster that we've ever had.
That's good.
That's what I felt. That's what I thought. That's what a lot of
my twin felt that way. And I got we had a photo op together.
Yeah, it was nice.
Good.
Yeah. Jocko and Leif said the same thing. They're like, this was the best muster ever. And it's just a testament to how incredible our operations team is. Jen Tarantino and her team is just awesome. And you think about what Jamie Cochran built. She developed and built the muster.
Yeah.
Because of an idea that Jocko and Leif had, and she ran with it, and that's what she went to school for, and that's what Jamie's incredible with when it comes to her attention to detail on these events is kind of unreal. She's like a savant, I would say, at these things. And so is Jen Tarantino.
Yeah, Jen Tarantino's a boss.
Which is a testament to who Jen Tarantino is, but also if you look at it from a leadership standpoint, what Jamie has been able to do with Jen.
Yeah.
And what Jen has been able to do with her team. Where instead of her being hands-on and doing all the things, she's just now, all right, cool. Hey, what do you guys think about this? Or, hey, what's an update on this? And just letting the event run and letting the people do their jobs and driving ownership and letting people just.
Yeah, she got to do some,
it was really cool.
Hanging out. I remember last year, Jen was still really heavily involved, but Jamie was still kind of watching everything, still guiding stuff at muster.
It's hard to not watch your baby.
Yeah, at 17. But one of the big changes I saw this year was that when Jamie saw Amanda and stuff, she just went over and talked to her.
Yeah.
That she just
doing
felt
her thing.
a lot more freedom to go and to hang out, which was really cool.
And it was cool seeing Jen do the same thing. When Jen saw Amanda and the kids, she went and spent time with them, and her and Amanda were walking around and talking through stuff, and it was really cool.
Yeah, man.
So what do you think about the muster? What were some takeaways for you?
Well, one is that I got to go incognito mode because I didn't have a beard.
Dude, how awesome.
It was pretty hilarious, especially when Josh Strasburger and Justin Blythe, who both work FTXs, they're kind of watching the door as we're going out to PT in the morning. And they were talking about something, and I forget what they said, something along the lines of he doesn't care or something like that. And so I just repeated it in my morning voice. And I was like, yeah, he doesn't care. And Josh kind of turned, and aggressive, who's this idiot that's talking? And he turned and he looked at me.
But
and he was I recognize the voice. And he told me, he's like, holy crap, dude. So that cool. That was pretty funny. And I got the same reaction from some other podcast listeners who were there that they were like, Lucas?
Are you Lucas?
Yeah. So, that was kind of fun to get to see some of those folks and to hear about how they had supported America's Mighty Warriors in order to make sure that I looked like a shorn sheep, or as Levi said, Daddy has a smooth beard now. So. We've been rocking with that. Daddy's got a smooth beard like Levi. Yeah,
Yep.
I do look like my 2-year-old now.
That's amazing.
Fantastic.
That's so cool.
But I think my biggest takeaways, one, Danny Zeem's brief this time was unreal. real.
That's good.
Yeah, not only did he tell a story that I hadn't heard before, but the guy he was telling the story about how he failed in leadership, that dude was at the muster. He was there, and even though Danny didn't address him by name, like in front of everybody, he's like, "Brother, you know who you are. I'm so sorry I failed you." And I was like, "Oh my gosh," you know.
That was good.
Like, talk about really practicing what you preach, and having had to over the years, you know, as I misstate something, or I think about something backwards, or, you know, something like that happens in a sermon or in a class that I'm teaching at, and knowing that, like, hey, the next Sunday I've got to go in and I've got to correct this. That it's one of those things that, like, you kind of dread, even though it's the right thing to do. So having been in Danny's shoes a couple of times, seeing that and watching how he did it in front of 1,000 people, and just seeing that example of, like, what taking ownership really looks like, that was, I think, one of the biggest standout things in day one to me by far.
What was also cool about that is when you were watching, you could tell he was genuine.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I'm sure you were. I was watching his body language and his facial expressions. He wasn't just saying it because,
No.
I'm presenting at the muster, which none of us do that.
Right.
But there are other groups and organizations that
Yeah.
put on a show. Now, there is a show aspect to the muster for sure, because
No doubt.
I mean, that's part of it. But everyone's being genuine. I guess that's what I was looking to say. And you could tell it was a genuine apology, and you could tell, like, it was stressing him out.
Yeah. He came up to me during PT, because I also so I was in, like, a black hoodie and over to the side and had a beanie on because it was freaking. Somebody told Texas it was October, but just for the few days of the muster, so it was 40 degrees outside on top of the
awesome.
on top of the outdoor parking lot that we were at. And so we're up on, like, the 5th floor of the parking lot doing whatever. And Danny kind of he was like, "Hey, Lucas?" I was like, yeah. So we talked, and after PT, he pulled me aside and he was like, "Hey, I think I'm gonna, like, you know, just think about this, be praying about it, because this is, you know, one of those things that, and I think I'm really feeling like I'm supposed to apologize to him in front of everybody, and I'm not really sure how to do that, or if I'm going to be able to." And I was like, "Yeah, man, absolutely." And then getting to watch that come out, knowing that was something that he had really been wrestling with, that it wasn't just a show thing, that was a legit, just super authentic moment, which was really cool. And I think that added a lot to it. I also noticed how, what's the proper way to put it? Stressed you and Cody are before you guys give your briefs. Y'all are locked in.
Locked in, yeah.
Yeah. That's probably the best way to put it, because you are just 100% in the zone.
Yep.
And then after you give your brief, you're back to being just, like, now you're talking to people and you're like, "Hey, what's up?" But before then you're like, "Hello."
Yeah. Oh, I've been like that every muster.
No doubt.
And I recognized I needed to change that perception, because it used to be a lot worse than that, to the point where Cody and the guys would tell people, "Just don't talk to JP until he's done."
Right.
And I was like, "Well, I don't want that to happen." You know what I mean? I don't want my guys to not talk to me. And I realized, like, from a leadership aspect, that's bad. Like, if your people are, like, walking on not that my guys were, but you don't want that. And I recognize, like, okay, it's good to be dialed in and focused and thinking and intent. You know, that's what Jocko and Leif are doing.
Right.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like, and now obviously they're doing the bulk of everything at the muster. But for me, I take what I'm going to be doing at the muster extremely serious.
Oh, no doubt.
And I'm always tweaking and changing my brief to make it a little bit better, a little bit different, a little, you know, I made a lot of changes from the last time you saw it.
Yeah.
But incremental changes, because I've changed it each time since you saw it.
Yeah.
Like little tweaks. And you're right. I am. And so is Cody and a few other guys, like, super intense and locked in and focused. And I think you should be like that to an extent. And I understood a few musters ago, not a few, actually a handful, like a while ago, that I really needed to throttle that back a little bit, because it was like, well, okay, hold on. One, that's not needed.
Sure.
To be that, like, wound tight. And also, like, that's contagious. And what type of example are you setting to other people? So,
but you also, you don't, I mean, everybody's different. Like, this is one of the things that is cool about seeing all of y'all together. Boy, that's a lot of all of you all together. That's as I'm diagramming. I'm diagramming all this stuff.
You
yeah,
said it was right.
Seeing all y'all together was really interesting because everybody kind of handles pregame a little different. And this is something that I see whenever I go to speak at conferences. Like some guys want to get I like to be really loose beforehand, and I stress a lot of people out because I like to be really loose beforehand. So if we're if there's 4 or 5 of us that are going to speak and we're all together, the other guys might be reviewing their notes or whatever. And I'm trying to crack jokes. Yeah. I say I'm trying to crack jokes. I'm chatty. Yeah. And that, I have to have all of my work done beforehand. That study at the last minute is more likely to lead to an intrusive thought and get me off of my outline than to keep me locked and dialed in. But it was funny to see, funny in an interesting way, to see the way that, you and Cody and Carlos and Rob and Danny and all the different guys that we've had on the podcast kind of handle those, the pregame sort of, we talked about routines, but kind of just the pregame attitudes that everybody has is pretty cool. It's cool. So, and watching Rob Jones give his brief on owning your attitude was so cool for me this year, knowing so much more about that story than what you get in the 30 minutes that he gets at a muster. Whereas, sitting down with him for 3 hours and really hearing about everything that went into it, that it's a lot more than a sweep left, no beeps, step, go to the right, left, right, step with the right foot, and then taking off his feet, everything that went into that, and the moments right after that he doesn't describe in that brief because he's so dialed in on making sure that it's about what it's about and not all the extra details. His brief was really cool to see and gave me a lot more perspective on what he does.
You got I love all the briefs, and I get something from every single brief. I'm always taking notes at every muster. And what was cool about Rob Jones's brief is just hearing it again of hey, you are in control of how you react to your situation. Yeah. No matter what's happened to you, you're in control. We all have that choice. We all have that freedom of choice, which is a beautiful thing that we have. Yeah. And you have somebody like Rob who lost both of his legs and had all these things thrown at him, but chose to have a good attitude, that chose to be positive, you know what I mean? And so it's all these things. It's a reminder for all of us. We've talked about it a lot. My parents taught us that stuff growing up. Hey, your attitude is huge. You have to control your attitude, the way you react to things, and, waking up and saying, all right, what am I going to do? What am I going to do with this day, this opportunity, this gift that I have in front of me? And Rob Jones is a great example of somebody who had something horrific happen to him and chose to say, okay, well, this isn't about me. It's about my family. Yeah. I'm not going to add this additional burden to my family through having a negative attitude. I'm not saying the injury is a burden. I mean, it is, but it's also not a burden. When you really think of it big picture, his whole thing was hey, if I had a bad attitude and I played the victim card and it was woe is me all the time, then that's an actual burden that you're placing upon your family that you don't need to. 100%. And so it's just a good reminder of okay, I need to be very intentional with my attitude, with how I talk, with how to react to things, and also setting that example for our children as well.
100%.
Do the same thing. So
yeah, Levi was really excited to see Mr. Rob until he got to meet Mr. Rob. Right. So when I was editing that episode, I did a lot of that one from home. We just had a bunch of stuff going on, and Scotty was pretty fresh, and so Levi, every time he would walk by, he's got some new toy or he's banging on something because that's what you do when you're 2 years old. Yeah. Yep. And
41.
Yeah, he would, right? So he would just look at the screen and Rob would be on there and he'd be like, oh, Mr. Rob? Mr. Rob? Yeah, so awesome. It's going back and forth with that. And then when we saw him at the muster, we saw him and he looked at him and recognized him. He's like, oh, Mr. Rob. So
dude, your son is so intelligent.
He's
I can say that.
Terror. We're in so much trouble, man.
Well, I mean, maybe.
Yeah,
Yes and no. Yes,
Right.
100%, because you're going to have to be extra
dude. So
extra eyes on, hands on, attention to detail, giving him energy, giving him focus, giving him direction.
yep.
Yeah.
It's so I'll finish the Rob story and then I've got a non sequitur about him
Okay.
right now that's just like blowing my mind.
A what?
A non sequitur, like something that's completely off topic and out of.
You know the rules. You can't use big words like
Sorry,
that.
I don't even know how to spell it, so I shouldn't use it anyway. So we at Jiu-Jitsu, the introduction to Jiu-Jitsu thing, we I had dinner with the family and then we brought him down so that because that's kind of the way everything wraps up. So we were just going to say hey to everybody, and Kirsten hadn't gotten a chance to see Amanda yet, and so we were going to,
That's crazy
say
how
hey to
busy
everybody.
it was.
I know, it was nuts. But so Levi got to meet Mr. Rob, and as soon as he saw Rob, he just like tightened up, and he was like, "Mr. Rob." Like, yep. And Rob was like, "Hey, buddy, how are you?" And he just turned away and he's like, "No, thank you. No, thank you." I was like, oh, he just got like nervous and starstruck. And so Rob gave him put his hand out to give a fist bump, and he gave him a fist bump. And I was like, dude, I have no idea what's going on. He's like, it's just kids. And then as Rob's like walking away, Levi's like, "Bye, Mr. Rob. Bye, Mr. Rob." So we get home, and one of the things that they're selling was like this sheet of stickers that were all themed for Muster 020. So there's a Muster 020 sticker. There's a, discipline equals freedom. There's an own your attitude sticker, which is the name of Rob's brief. So we took it, and he loves stickers. So we were putting them all over the Hydro Flask that we got there. And we got to that when I was like, oh, this is Mr. Rob sticker. So every time he walks by my bottle now, he's like, Mr. Rob sticker. Like, just dude's totally in love with him. So here's the non sequitur. I was listening to a couple of books recently about just outliers in general. So like Malcolm Gladwell's book Outliers, re-listen to that, listen to The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg and a few others. And so one of the things there was this case study on this dad who got his kids playing chess really early. So I was like, you know what, we'll see. I'm terrible at chess. Kirsten is pretty good. And so her and I have been playing a little bit, and Levi, but like the last couple of weeks has been
you just quit before she beats you, therefore she can't actually beat you.
No, bro, I've got an index card that I keep with the chess set that she hates, and it keeps score of like how many wins and losses we each have. I have no wins against my wife. She's cursed. Like, if you know anything about chess scoring, like the highest human is Magnus something, and he's like a 2850 on the thing. Like I'm at about a 1200 on the ratings. I'm not very good. Kirsten is like a 1650 or 1700. She's a really good chess player. So anyway, so we've been playing. So now Levi wants to play. And so a couple of weeks ago, he was just like setting the pieces up and, just figuring out where to put the pieces on the chessboard. Last night, he was like, "Yeah, can we play chess?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." So, and I'm just thinking we'll like set all the pieces out like we normally do, and whatever. And he'll like, point to one and we'll move it.
in the right positions.
All of the things are in the right position, right? He decides he wants to play mommy. So I was like, "Cool, yeah, play mom." And he made like 3 moves that were just really great opening moves. Moved the pawn to the right place. Was able to move his bishop like in the diagonal. Like,
so when
knew
you guys
where
were teaching him this, did you explain like, hey, if you do this, here's the other things that support it?
No. We were just kind of playing and showing him this does this and he would want to move it. He'd be like, all right, I'll move this piece, and I was like, well, he can't do that. You can only go. You can move one of these guys or your ponies, and just kind of talked through it. Kirsten has taught him a little bit more in the last couple of days about like, okay, well, if you do this, like they got to protect each other. We were 100% sure that he was not picking up on most of it and just like wanted to hang out. But last night was the first time we were like, okay, he's figuring some of this out. Like, moved the bishops properly. Didn't really get the knight movement down, but it's a little tricky. He moved like 3 or 4 pieces well, and then after that, he was like, all done. It's like, cool, right? Like, as long as you're having fun with it, awesome. But I'm telling you, man, we got our hands full with that one. So
that's cool.
Yeah. Before we like move on to some of the stuff that happened on day 2, your brief on complacency kind of opened up after the first break.
Yeah, it was right after lunch.
And really set the tone for allowing the dominoes on the rest of that first day to really fall into place. I like some of the new additions and some of the stuff that you've kind of tweaked, and it definitely tightened it up. I'm curious as to how you do that, right? Because like for me, I'm doing something different every week. My 45-minute, brief or whatever you want to call it, the sermon is different every week. And when I go, and if somebody asks me, they're like, hey, you preach this sermon, or like when I do camps and I'm preaching the same sermon multiple times, it's a challenge for me to kind of sometimes to get up the same, enthusiasm, the same kind of juice to get back after it and talk about the same subject, because I'm so used to switching gears so often. What's that process like for you? Because this is sort of your brief at the muster, is the going to war with complacency and talking about all of that stuff. And you seem as fired up about it, last week as you were when I saw you a year ago, as it seems like from everybody that I've heard, like that you have been for, a couple of years worth of musters, or a few years worth of musters. I think this was year 8 that we're in now. Like, how do you maintain the juice and going after it every time?
Well, I change up my brief, and it has changed a lot over the years. Like the first few briefs that I gave were about training. It wasn't, but I would also tie complacency into it. And I think it's just, it's part of the culture of what we had in the SEAL teams was, always trying to make yourself a better version of who you are when it comes to being able to do your job.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know this. You did the balance assessments. Your balance assessment was way different than the last one.
Yeah, it was.
And, and that's a normal thing. Like all of us deal with that. And
Fantastic.
So it's just, for me, seeing that over all the years of time in SEAL teams, business, marriage, relationships with family and friends, is when you're trying to focus on bringing up and elevating an area in your life, you have to be very intentional with that.
Yeah.
And if you're not intentional, you're going to fall out of balance. There's a lot of people that, they just focused on business, and then their marriage falls apart or their family falls apart because they're always chasing the next thing in business.
Yeah.
Because it's addicting. And you get that dopamine hit, you get that raise, you get that promotion, you get that, the accolade, you get the recognition, all these things that happen. And then you're chasing the next one and the next one and the next one. And you would see that in the SEAL teams where guys were chasing that pursuit of perfection, trying to perfect their craft. And in order for us to be able to do that, guys had to be very intentional.
Yeah.
Because that complacency is going to creep in. And to the point where, you'd see guys in our community be like, they would like mock guys that would stay at work late trying to refine their craft.
Really?
Yeah. That's a normal thing.
Yeah.
That's actually not uncommon.
No, it's not uncommon, but it would seem to me like in that setting that would almost be like what you would want, but yeah, like it,
you would. And let me be 100%
because it's literally life and death on the line when it's you guys.
But not everybody does that all the time.
Yeah.
I didn't do it all the time. Like, guys, like not everyone, I remember there was a time Jocko was talking about Seth, and he said, if Seth could live at the SEAL team, he would.
Yeah.
Because that's how like dialed in he was on just wanting to tweak his gear and make his gear better. And he was infatuated with it. And Leif was the same way.
Right.
And so when you have leaders like Jocko and Leif and Seth who were infatuated with making themselves a better version and a better leader and make sure their gear was squared away. And, that's, and there's a lot of other SEALs that did that. That's just part of the culture that we had. And so I saw the times where it would improve my quality of life is by being disciplined and not let complacency creep in. And then I've also, and I share this at the muster, and I've shared this before, where there's times where I've let complacency creep in and it ruined the quality of my life. My wife and I got divorced. Why do you think my wife served me divorce papers? Was it because I was being an awesome, loving husband? No. I wasn't. I was being a jerk. We were fighting a lot. I was starting these fights. I was, not communicating to her properly. I wasn't putting her first. It's like all these things. And so when people understand that, hey, if you decide to actually take ownership over your attitude and your life and your actions, you can actually go out there and win.
Yeah.
Like no matter what's going on, and, it's been a struggle for my dad, and I see my dad doing that. He has really bad days with his health,
Yeah.
Really bad days. And then there's days that are really good for him, but he's trying to maintain a positive attitude. And so is my mom the whole time. And nobody can make him do that.
Right.
It's his choice. It's my mom's choice. And, I've seen, like my buddy Derek, who was on the Extortion 17 helicopter crash, and, hearing guys from that command talk about him was unreal.
Yeah.
They called him, one of the guys said he was Damn Neck 2.0, meaning he was the next best version of that command.
That's pretty sick.
Dude, like I remember sitting there hearing that and getting emotional thinking about how good of a guy Derek was.
Yeah.
I mean, that command is very, 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 very tight knit, and they should be. And then for somebody to say that he was Damn Neck 2.0, I mean, it's awesome. And you got to think about it, like when you're surrounded by guys like that. I mean, there would be times I come home from work and Derek was already at the house, and we'd just be kind of like figuring out what the plan was. He's like, "Hey man, I'm going to go run some sprints. You want to come?" And I'm like, "Not really," because I'd already done my workout. And I'm being honest. I'm like, "Not really." He's like, "Cool. So you going to come run sprints, or are you just going to sit at the house like a?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll grab my shoes."
Yeah. I have a friend that does this kind of stuff to me.
But, like that's the people we want to be surrounded by.
Yeah, for sure.
And, it's, so I think just going back to my brief, it's just being around that. Basically my whole life growing up is having that mindset of just going out there, putting in the work, not getting lazy just because things are good, like still putting in the work. It's a reminder to myself when I'm talking at the muster, I'm talking to myself, and it just happens to be 1,000 people listening.
Yeah.
That brief is for me every single time, because it's a reminder of what I need to be doing. And, it's funny. I'll be talking with Jocko and Leif about stuff, about things I need to fix, I need to improve. And Leif and I were having a conversation today. We had an hour call today, and it was awesome this morning. We have our weekly calls. Monday I wasn't able to do it with them, so we were able to push it till today. And, he's like, JP, he's like, you're hypercritical on the things that you need to improve. He goes, which is great. I like that. He goes, here's the things that like Jocko and I need you focusing on. And I'm like, cool, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's what I need. And that's what good leaders do,
right.
Is, hey, you're focused over here. That's good. This area is good to go. Let's shift over here. Let's get this area good to go. And, and that's what good leaders do. And that's what Jocko does. That's what Leif does. That's what Jamie and Dave do. Because whenever I have a call with Dave or Jamie, like we're talking about these things from a personal and a professional standpoint, from an organizational standpoint, and then also my position and our positions in there. And we owe it to each other. What good of a friend would I be if I didn't give constructive feedback to one of my peers or anybody on my team?
Not a good teammate.
I wouldn't be a good teammate, and I wouldn't be a good leader. And there's, like I was talking with Justin earlier, and Justin's been doing an awesome job at Echelon Front to the point where Dave has pulled me aside to talk about how good Justin's doing. Leif mentioned it. Jamie mentioned it. And it's like Cody and I were talking about just about how good of a job he's been doing. And I was talking with Justin on the way here. And he, working on an event and working through some stuff. And it was just cool to just hear what he was working through, and just cool. Hey, let me know what I can do to support. And instead of just asking that question, because, Leif and I were talking about it, and Leif was like, he's like, hey, here's what you can think about as a leader. And so one of the things I was thinking about today after our conversation, which Leif brought to my attention, instead of just saying, hey, what can I do to help? He goes, ask that, and see what they have to say. But then he's like, strategically where things need to be going, and you can ask these questions as a leader to get them pointed in that right direction.
Yeah.
And it was just a reminder, like, these are the things that we teach, these are the things that we do. But Leif he wasn't telling me, hey, you haven't been doing this, is what you need to be doing. It was just like, hey, just remember, like, in your position, just asking those strategic questions to get guys thinking strategically is what we need to be doing. And that's a great way to fight complacency. And, it's just, again, my brief at the muster, it's for me. I'm talking to myself, and knowing that there are people that hopefully can take something from it that can be applied to their personal and professional lives is awesome. Every single muster that I've shared what Amanda and I did to restore our marriage, every single one, I've had somebody come up to me and tell me that they're going through the same thing and that they were going to fight, that they're going to fight to get their marriage back and or save their marriage.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's worth it alone every single time. And so I think that's why the whole complacency talk is so passionate for me, is because I have let complacency damage a lot of things in my life. And I try to remind myself of those things so that I don't repeat those mistakes, and so that I can stay vigilant, that I can keep pushing. And if I can help other people do the same thing, then it's worth it,
Yeah.
So
You mentioned Seth Stone, and there is this, I don't know what the right way to phrase it is. It feels like there's people at the muster that aren't at the muster, right? Because of what a big role they played in Task Unit Bruiser. Mm-hmm. And the emotion with which you guys talk about him. Listening to Jocko talk about Ryan Job and Mikey Mansour and Mark Lee, that it is obviously still, over a decade later, that it's still fresh for him, that there's still a weight there and a responsibility there. And hearing, him and Leif talk about Seth, that there is the way that y'all talk about those guys. We hear the, gone but not forgotten kind of thing.
Yeah.
I would not have been surprised if any one of those guys would have just like walked through the door. Because
it's crazy, right?
Yeah, because like the way that you talk about the times you had with them, their contributions to the teams and to Task Unit Bruiser, it's almost talked about in the present tense, as though they're still around, which is a very cool thing to get to see and to get to hear, and especially getting to interact with Debbie Lee, Mama Lee from America's Mighty Warriors, getting to chat with her a little bit. She was beside herself whenever she saw my face, but really more so because she's a retired preschool teacher, so she got to hang out with Levi and Scotty. She was much more, oh my gosh, man, she was so great with them. And Levi, it's because our family's all blonde, right? So, except for, I say, all of my side of the family is all blonde. Kirsten is not. But as soon as, he saw Mama Lee, he was like, oh, she's got to be one of our people. She's blonde. She's part of the crew. So, yeah, they had a great time. But, yeah, listening to you guys talk about them was, it's very moving. And it's definitely something that, we joke about the NCC thing. Yeah. And we talked about this a little bit, I think maybe a couple of episodes ago, about how like the brotherhood that you guys have is not something that in the civilian world we're likely to have something that's congruent to that. It's amazing to get to see, to hear those things. And one of the things that I didn't realize until the muster was that Dave Burke lost a guy, and he was the first one of that unit. That was a pretty impactful thing. Well, the day one wrap up, talking about those guys and the contributions that they made, and what like ownership to like that nth degree is, and making sure that your life meant something, and completely taking ownership, and the way that those guys did is absolutely incredible. And then kicking off day two, speaking of Dave Burke, he is exactly how I imagine a Top Gun pilot would be. It's like, I know you're not like a Star Wars guy, but Han Solo is, he's the scoundrel, the ace pilot, kind of just cocky swagger guy. That is the way that Dave Burke carries himself.
Without being cocky, which is crazy.
Yeah, just like this incredible amount of like strut confidence. Like as soon as he walks out on stage and he kind of like cocks his hip out and leans onto the table, I was like, yeah, he's definitely a Top Gun pilot. Like he's tall Tom Cruise. So it was really
it's funny.
cool.
He's who Tom Cruise plays, right?
Yeah,
Which is crazy if you think about that.
Yep, 100%. But he's got all of that. How would you? I think they describe it in the books as an easy confidence that's it. And he wrote the code. He co-authored that with Jocko. So I went up to have Dave sign it, and Dave was like, "Oh, did you bring a pen?" It's like, yeah, I brought a pen. You can sign it. And he just writes, he writes Dave in there, and it's just it's in block letters. There's nothing about it, but just the way that he did it was like, this is it. I'm Dave. Here's your book bag. Thank you very much. And it was cool, and we got to chat for a little bit. But his briefs were great, incredibly insightful the way that guy's mind works.
Bro.
You want to talk about a genius level problem solver. It is insane.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like not just the resume is beyond impressive in and of itself, but not just being a Marine fighter pilot at Top Gun, but being the Marine fighter pilot who is and I could be wrong on this, but from the research that I've done kind of about it and the conversation I've had, I think he might be the only Marine fighter pilot who was the lead Top Gun or the lead instructor at Top Gun. I could be wrong about that.
I think
I think he's the only one.
I think he's the only one. If not, he is the only person to have ever flown and commanded
Yep.
the F-16 unit, F-18 unit, F-22 unit, and the F-35 unit.
Yeah.
He's also the reason why the F-35 unit is still around.
Yeah.
Because they were trying to get rid of it, and he's like, oh, no, you guys don't understand what we have. There's a 60-minute special about that.
That's crazy. He's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure the reason you guys don't think this is very good is because you don't know how to drive it. So let me show you how to. You don't
know what I know.
Yeah.
And what is cool is you think about
crazy,
that.
Man.
Is he recognized, they don't know what I know. So I need to educate them.
Yeah.
Instead of just taking it the wrong way, like, you guys are idiots. Why would you get rid of this? Yep. He recognized, like, they want to get rid of it because they don't understand the value. If they don't understand the value, whose fault is that? Okay, that's on me to explain the importance of this. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm always like, it's crazy when I think about like the guys that I get to work with. Like, we're joking, but we're also being serious. Like a guy like Dave Burke, that's who they make movies about.
It literally is who they make movies
about. And Jocko
and
I talked about this on his podcast a while ago. Guys like Jesse Rembert, who helps out with the FTXs, who is at the muster talking to people. Guess what?
Yeah,
that's who The Rock plays. The Rock would love to be Jesse. You know what I mean? Like The Rock would play a role to live Jesse's life.
Jesse's got a better smile.
I agree.
Yeah.
And he's just a better human.
He's so big, though. He's so big. That guy,
I saw him
behind
man.
the FTX thing, and I was like, I think that's Jesse. Like, I hadn't met him before. And I went up to him, and I was like, hi, are you Mr. Jesse? And he's like, yeah, how you doing, son?
Yeah.
Because I look like I'm 12 now. And I told him who I was, and he was like, all right, NCCs, right? And I was like, yeah. And his hand, like his finger stretched all the way to, my elbow whenever he tried to give me a handshake.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know exactly what Levi feels like whenever he shakes hands with real adults now.
Yeah.
After having met Jesse.
It's funny. We tease Jesse. And, any of my origin family that's listening, maybe we can make something happen. I already talked to Pete. I know it'd just
nice.
It would be very hard to do this right now. But, like, the size of pants that Jesse wears, we joke about how if Origin ever does a sizing for people like Jesse, on the tag it's just going to be a picture of Sasquatch.
That's what it's got to be, right? So I was looking at him, and I'm like, he's an A12. Like, if you were measuring geese. He's
I think we
big.
got him a gi. He's an A5, I think.
Yeah, he's a gorilla.
It's crazy.
Yeah, but
and it's not because he's fat.
No, and he's super nice.
Former Green Beret, full-time Denver SWAT guy. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah,
so
and just, very jovial,
Yes.
was happy to talk to people, had a great personality, and I was like, yeah, this is...
What do you think about Hasby's brief?
Okay, so this is the one criticism that I have. Matt Hasby did not finish his opening story. He starts with a story, and you assume what the end of it was, but he didn't actually, like, he didn't.
You can piece it
explicitly
together.
Yeah, I
like,
pieced
you
it together.
know. Yeah.
But that is the one thing that I had on there. So I was like, Hasby he didn't give me the payoff for the story. Like, I want the payoff other than it sounds like Leif. And Leif described himself this way in a recent Echelon Front video, as he was talking about how he really learned from Jocko, like, how to control his emotions because he was pretty hot-headed. That comes across in Hasby's brief pretty succinctly.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, his just in general, his view on leadership and him being a challenge for leadership, but being able to take him from a leadership challenge to not just a productive member of the teams, but to now to where he, like, at the end of his time of the teams, was a sought after leader.
Yep.
And then beyond that, ended up being brilliant in the consulting field and is now at Echelon Front. The thing about Matt, that when we get him on, that I really want to talk to him about is it's got to be strange, kind of at this point in his career with Echelon Front, like, in some ways, like, starting over.
Yeah.
Starting over with a new company after you've established yourself as a serious and smart consultant. I think he's retired from the SEAL teams, right?
Yeah, he retired from the SEAL teams.
So, like, you've worked your way up through there. Now you're in civilian life. You're doing great there. And now you come onto Echelon Front and you are now the most junior instructor. Like, that, is there something to, like, the challenge of it that he just sees as, like, you know, he doesn't mind, you know, restarting, and he sees that as a challenge? Or
yeah, but you got to think about
just
it.
Like, the opportunity was just
it's the opportunity,
and,
but also Matt's a humble guy and knows that, you know, when he was doing consulting, guess where he started?
at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter who you are and what your background is. Most of the time, you're going to start at the bottom.
Yeah.
Or you're going to be put in an elevated leadership position because of your background and experience, but you're still at the bottom there.
Yeah.
And Matt knew that, and Matt's a humble guy, and it didn't matter. Like, Matt doesn't care.
And that's kind of what I think is cool. Is like,
yeah, I mean, you know, you have a guy like Cody who's younger than him and has less military experience, but Cody's a senior instructor that has
right.
He is.
It's wild to me.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I almost think in some regards that the military helped prep y'all for the structure that you have now, that it's so merit-based. And the way that you lead and the way that you build your instructors up, because in a lot of civilian industries, and I was recently listening to Tim Ferriss talk about this, in a lot of civilian industries, like, as soon as you've got someone that is younger, that is a supervisor of older people, there's an immediate sort of like disparagement there. Like, the older people will assume that they don't understand what it's like, that they make assumptions generationally about work ethic and those kinds of things. And the same thing happens vice versa, that the younger supervisor will come in with all these presuppositions and that type of stuff. But not just the structure of the military, but I think the extreme ownership attitude really is what it is more than anything else, is that, like, it doesn't matter where I am. My responsibility is to lead up and down the chain of command. I am going to be as successful as I can be within this structure, because Echelon Front is going to afford me the opportunities to do that. They're going to let me work, but also, like, if I'm not putting in the work, that's going to show pretty quickly that I didn't, as you say, earn my spot at the table. Yeah. So it's just his story and seeing where he came from, and then that he saw this opportunity. And he was like, yeah, you know what? A junior instructor at Echelon Front, to me, that's where I want to be. And wants to put in the work and do all that stuff is very cool to see that attitude. So
I'm glad that you said that, the attitude, because I want to dive a little bit deeper into that. We'll pull the thread on that.
Yeah.
That subject is, it was a part of the culture that we had in the SEAL teams and that we have at Echelon Front. nobody cares about their titles.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about their titles.
Yeah.
Nobody uses their titles. Like, we don't do that because nobody cares. Because your title doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
It's about how you treat people. And here's the reason why titles don't mean anything. It's about you actually going out there and doing the work.
100%.
You don't need a title to do work. You don't need a title to stack up wins. You don't need a title to show up early and stay late and do the hard work. Like, you don't need a title. Nobody needs to give you permission to do those things.
Right.
At Echelon Front, that's what we do. Like, okay, yeah, Jocko's the CEO and Lace the president. How many times do you ever think, like, hey, as the CEO, Jocko's...
I probably think zero, right?
I don't think I've ever heard him say that.
I would love to hear him say that, though.
You know, not once have I ever been talking with Leif and he's like, hey, JP, you know, as the president of Echelon Front.
I'm going to see if I can get him to say that at the event on the 16th. Be like, I just need you to say this sentence. As the president of Echelon Front, I blah, blah, blah. I seriously doubt because
I'm
like you said,
you right now, I know
it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
We don't care about titles.
Yeah.
So whether you're a senior instructor like Dave Burke and myself,
right,
or a brand new instructor like Matt Hasby, it makes no difference.
Yeah. Can you do the job?
Can you do the job? Do you want to do the job? Do you enjoy doing the job? Are you good at doing the job? Are you willing to put in the work? Are you willing to sacrifice what's needed to earn the seat at the table? Or do you just expect things to be given to you?
Yeah.
You know how many times we had, like when Matt knew he had an opportunity to come on board the team and be an instructor, he was asking, hey, what do I need to be doing? Hey, do I need to make up my own brief? Hey, you know, he made up his own versions of the brief. He had multiple versions of the brief ready to go.
That's awesome.
Before he was actually... That's what guys do if they want to be a part of our team.
It's
and gals,
strategic
guys and
thinking,
gals, right?
Right.
Like Corey and Meg and Jamie, like our female instructors are phenomenal, but they put in the work. And so that's why for someone like Matt, it's like, hey, you have the opportunity. And it's like, okay, cool. You call me the janitor.
Yeah.
I get to wear a black Echelon Front polo and go speak to people about what I learned, the lessons that I've learned, the mistakes I've made and how I've corrected them. The good leadership lessons that I learned and how I was able to implement them. And that's going to go change somebody's life. And I get paid to do that. All right. Sounds like a good deal.
Yeah. Pretty dope.
Yeah.
That is busted.
You kill me with that, man. But, you know, that's same thing as Rob Jones. You have somebody like Rob Jones who came on as an instructor with us. He's everyone knows who Rob is beforehand.
Yeah.
He was on Jocko's podcast before he was with us.
And that was really
He's
cool.
He's a well-known person.
Mm-hmm.
He was doing awesome things. He was also getting paid to go give motivational speeches. But he recognized...
Rob Jones can fire somebody up. He's got a little something in his motivational speech.
He's
tank.
a great speaker.
Yeah.
He's a great speaker. But the thing with Rob's talks... like all the instructors at Echelon Front, there's value and action that you can take.
Yeah.
It's like, Jocko talks about at the muster about, it's not like a Rocky movie. Like, that's not what we want. We don't want you to be all fired up when you watch Rocky. You're like, all right, you go watch Rocky and you're drinking raw eggs, you're jump roping, you're shadow boxing, you're
grabbing
working
a
out.
steak out of the freezer and punching it.
Yeah. You're like doing all these things. And the next day you're like, all right, maybe I'm just going to jump rope and I might go for a run. And then that motivation fades.
Right.
And so what I like about what all the instructors are able to provide at Echelon Front is tangible takeaways that apply value.
Yeah.
And from someone like Matt Hasby, who's one of our new instructors, all the way up to, Dave and myself, it's, these things work if you choose to let them work.
Yeah.
Which it means that you actually have to put in the work. And so that's one of the things that I loved about Rob was just how humble he was when he came on board the team.
Yeah.
And, either stay humble or you're going to get humbled. I know Jocko's been talking about that for a long time, and we all have those experiences in life. And it's just really cool to see the muster all come together. And, I think that also answers the question that you asked me is like, why do I still have so much passion and energy in regards to the talk that I give, it's because these are the guys that I get to hang around.
Yeah, I was going to say,
these are
it's
the guys that I get to work with.
Attitude, yeah.
These are the guys that I get to work with, that I text with, that I talk with, and yeah, it's just a cool opportunity. So
yeah, I do think that's one of the things that, we've talked a little bit about the must be nice attitude. And on the one hand, it's like, yeah, it must be nice to be, you're in text messages with Rob Jones and with Matt Hasby and, with Cody and Leif and Jocko. But the thing about the muster that really comes across, and particularly in Jamie's brief, is that you can create that same culture wherever you are.
yes.
And that is such an encouraging thing, and she used, I didn't know she was going to use Jonathan and Ann as an example, which was really cool. And I got to chat with Ann a little bit about this afterwards. And, just it was neat to see them up there. I was giving Jonathan a hard time. I was like, so, you didn't let me know your pictures and stuff was going to be up there. And he's like, yeah. So they are obviously like wonderful examples. But Ann's quote was that extreme ownership saved our marriage and then it saved our business.
Yeah.
That is such a powerful thing. But then, going back, so like that was after they had already been on our episode, right? Like I'm watching that. I'm watching Jamie's brief after our episode has already been released. So like we know the story and we've got some time to kind of hang out with him before and after. And Jonathan was making fun of me during your cash outs on, PT. So it was fun to just kind of get to develop that relationship a little bit, but then see how that has really like affected them and listen to them talk about how they make sure that, yeah, the 4 free weeks is like something to give away that they do for, they did it for America's Mighty Warriors. They've done it for several people at the muster. If you came through and you bought something at the muster.
Well, now they're doing it for every muster attendee.
Yeah. So like unreal, the value that's there. But one of the reasons that they do it is to make sure that you buy into the culture, and that they started when they went full into the extreme ownership thing is they started, making sure that they're filling out all of the same stuff that, all of the participants, that you as a person who's now part of the First In family, all the stuff that you're filling out, they're turning in those same things. They're making sure that they're accountable to all that. And then watching how there are people now that are like, oh, well, I get to text Jonathan and Ann Montgomery, who 5 years ago
didn't have access.
Yeah. Yeah. And not just didn't have access, but like they wouldn't, texting Jonathan and Ann Montgomery may not have been a big thing, but you've seen how they've taken the principles, created this own culture within the fitness industry. And now that they've become, a deal, like, yeah, they did it because they took the principles, they applied it, and they created a culture around it. And, we have the opportunity to do that too. Like just because somebody's got 50,000 or 1 million or 7,500, whatever you've got on your Instagram following or whatever, that you're like, oh, well, I get to tell this. Like, yeah, that's kind of cool. But if you can create this culture in your company, then you're going to be hanging out with people who have those same values and principles all the time.
Yep.
And the amount of recharge that you get from your battery is going to be, the same as what you experience. It's just nobody's going to know that. Yeah. So I texted Bob in accounting this afternoon, and like we got all fired up because we're living out these principles, and that's such a cool deal.
And it opens you up to more and more people like that.
Yeah,
that's what you attract in your life.
Yeah.
That's why, part of my brief, I was talking about just understanding the circles of influence that people hold.
Yeah.
Why that's very important.
No doubt.
You have to be selective with the people that you allow to influence you. And if you're spending time with people, they're going to influence you.
No doubt.
And, Steven's dad had this saying, it was, and I know I said it before, is, change your friends or change your friends. So change and influence the people around you, or change the people that you hang out with, because that is going to have an impact on the way you think, the way you act, and the way you feel.
100%.
And so, and that's what's cool about ministry is like what you do as a pastor and people involved in ministry, they're actively seeking people outside of that circle to help influence them to understand the love that Jesus has, to understand, how a church should be treating people,
Yeah.
right? And that's what's really cool about what you do as a church, what Milestone does as a church. You know, there's a lot of great churches in this area. That's what Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu does. Like,
Yeah.
you know, what Isaac has been doing with Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu and the discipleship thing and that
pretty cool.
The morning thing. It's incredible, and it's growing, and it's having a positive impact on people's lives. And so there's also the flip side is like, hey, you should also be proactively going outside of your circle to better people and to influence them in a positive way. So, you know, it's cool. That's the culture of that we have at Echelon Front. And I hope people feel that same way when they listen to this podcast. And I think so, because I mean, those numbers were kind of crazy that we talked about earlier.
It's so wild. And, you know, we've talked a little bit about some of the other podcasts and stuff that I've started. The Reverend and the Reprobate was one that was like a big passion project for me. It was something that I really wanted to do, and you know, seeing where we were after 3 years of grinding and just making stuff happen, we did not accomplish in 3 years what this podcast has done in one. And it's just obvious to me, you know, that God's just blessing what we're doing. He's given us a lot of cool opportunities to interview some cool folks. We've got some other really cool people that are coming on the show.
Yes.
And in the next few weeks and months and into 2025 is where we've got some folks who are like reaching out and they're like, hey, I think I'm going to be able to fly in town. Can I, you know, is there a chance that we can get on the podcast here? And I'm like, you know, let's go. Absolutely. Let's do it. It's going to be an absolute blast. I want to know, is there somebody right now, like it can be an EF instructor or, you know, just sort of anybody that's out there. Let's limit it to the Echelon Front instructors. Is there an Echelon Front instructor right now that you really want for year 2? There's somebody that you're like, I think we could get 3 or 4 episodes out of this person that I really want to have this person on the podcast next year. I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, one that I'm actually in communication with the last couple of days, and even today we're trying to figure it out, is Cordell.
Really? Okay. All right. So Cordell's brief was also very good about accountability.
Only got
I know,
just a little bit from him.
He
is so brilliant.
Yeah.
And
he's another one of these fighter pilot guys, though.
Yeah,
that just he swaggers in and then he tells you stuff, and you're like,
well, companies bring
I don't know
him
if he
in
had
to be
anything.
The CEO, to like turn them around, and then I mean,
it's
what he's done is incredible.
I don't end up in like the fanboy category very often, right? But there is something about him and Dave where you're just like, he's pretty cool.
I get it.
Yeah,
Trust me.
Just it's weird because I don't feel that way often.
Yeah, they definitely have that. And, you know, obviously,
but you're like, that's a cool
I've talked
guy.
about Jamie Cochran. She said she'd come on the podcast. I'd love to have her on. I'd love to have Dave, Leif, Jocko. I want everybody.
Yeah.
But recently, to answer your question, the one that I've been trying to work out that I think will be just a handful of episodes that come from that is Cordell.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Housby said he'd want to come on too, and he wants to. Everybody does. But I'm saying
I talked
now,
to him a little bit about like. Yeah. So, Leif mentioned that Matt got shot in the face.
Yeah, Matt's the one that they talk about in Extreme Ownership with that blue on blue.
Okay,
so there was an Iraqi soldier that got killed.
Yeah.
And Matt got shot in the face by a 50 cal round.
And it just, like, what happened?
It slowed down enough going through the walls of the building that they were in, that when it went through, it hit him in the face, knocked him back, and was sticking out of his skin.
Good grief.
Talk about the grace of God.
No joke.
He also got shot out of a tower by an RPG, fell through the roof. He's the guy that falls through the roof in Extreme Ownership, too.
So, are you the only guy that we've interviewed that hasn't, other than me, that hasn't been blown up? Like, it seems like everybody we interview has been blown up. Jimmy got blown up. Ryan Parrott got blown up. I
had a mortar land very close to me and my buddy. I talked about it on Jocko's podcast, I think the very first episode.
Yeah.
That's, which caused some issues for both of us. We were,
Yep.
There's blood coming out.
I want to hear that story because
use the restroom.
Yeah, that story is the closest.
But blown up like these guys, no.
Yeah.
No, not even, no.
No,
but
that's,
close.
I was talking with a buddy of mine. He was like, do you guys interview anyone that wasn't blown up? I was like, what are you talking about? And then I started to think about it, and I was like, no, yeah, he got blown up.
Cody
wasn't blown up.
Cody wasn't blown up.
Cody wasn't blown up. Cody got sent into a terrible situation in Benghazi, but no, he didn't actually get blown up. But yeah, just about everybody else has some story where they're like, yeah, I did this, and then there was an IED, or like something happened, and my Humvee flipped, and whatever.
I've been trying to reach out to one of my
funny.
old buds instructors who I got to know when we were at the teams. He's a freaking stud.
Yeah.
When the war first kicked off, he called in. He had to call in airstrikes on his location.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's some Audie Murphy type
Like
stuff.
literally called it in on his location because he was. Yeah, that's what was going on.
Yeah. That is there.
Like, dude,
That's insane. No, I'm literally the only other person I've heard of that's done anything like that is the most decorated war hero of World War II.
Yeah,
where he's like fighting off this German line, and
like,
everybody else.
I'm pretty
is
sure,
going,
like, for it to be authorized, like you have to like give your initials. Like, I'm authorizing it. Here's my, and they're just like,
okay. Well, that's where you are, and he's though that's where the enemy is too.
Yeah.
So like this is it.
I don't want to screw up that story, but I just remember hearing about it in buds. So again, it might be completely construed the wrong way, but if it's even like 25% close to what I heard,
pretty legit.
It's going to be a pretty legit story.
Yeah,
so that's
I'm
I'd hope to
stoked
get
about
him. But all right, hey, we're going to close it out with some final thoughts like we always do. I just want to thank you guys for the support that you guys give us.
Yep.
Obviously, the support you guys give us has been incredible. It's working. And I think it's going to be cool. Like, as you guys continue giving more support, I hope it actually gives you guys a little more energy and drive to share it more, just to comment more, to just drive those metrics, which is going to be cool because that means that more lives are being impacted in a positive way. And so we're very thankful for all of God's blessings of the podcast and your guys' support.
Trying to get some merch drop in before Christmas.
Yes, we will. Josh and I talked about that. We have some. I know you guys you have some ideas. I have some ideas, so we'll start printing that stuff. That'll be awesome. Make sure you're subscribed to us on YouTube. That way you can be notified when the YouTube exclusives come out. Keep spreading the word. We appreciate you guys. If you want to follow us on social media, I am at JP Dinnell. Lucas is at Lucas Pinckard. That's Lucaspinckard. Make sure you're also following Echelon Front on social media. We're at Echelon Front. Our website is echelonfront.com. Check out Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu _USA. That is ministry that I'm a part of. We also have a podcast. Episodes come out every Tuesday. We have a live seminar coming up Saturday, November 16th down in Dripping Springs at Stoic Jiu-Jitsu at Leif Babin's gym, Stoic Jiu-Jitsu, who he owns with Marcus and Marcus's wife Lacey. So Marcus
who are just gems, man.
And
I've gotten to talk to them. They're so cool.
Marcus and Lacey are phenomenal humans, and their jiu-jitsu both is incredible. I haven't rolled with Lacey, but Marcus, so I'll let you know how good his jiu-jitsu is. It's to the point where Formiga talks about it and goes, I really enjoyed when Marcus came up to train with me. I need to go down and spend some time with him.
Well, he can come on the 16th. He can just come hang out with us.
Well, unfortunately, the Jiu-Jitsu World League World Finals is on that day, so we have a bunch of people from our gym competing, so he won't be able to.
Womp womp.
But that's how good Marcus's jiu-jitsu is. So anyway, Marcus, man. Lacey, and Leif own Stoic Jiu-Jitsu, and Tim Kennedy is giving the seminar. Leif Babin is giving his testimony.
Really? That's so cool.
Go.
Yeah, I'm stoked about that.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. We look forward to seeing you guys down there. Also, a partner of a small Texas beef company called Little Cattle Co.
Get that beef.
Yeah, man. Our website is littlecattle.co. We can deliver anywhere in the lower 48 states. We are a custom order beef company that allows you to order exactly what you need each time based off the needs of your family. We also have a ground beef subscription plan. We have different beef tallow products, which include a body butter, tallow cream, lip balm. We also have our new beef sticks that are absolutely incredible. Also, if you want to be a wholesaler for our beef sticks and or the beef tallow products, you can send an email to amanda@littlecattle.co. And also throughout the year, we can help you, and especially with the holidays coming up, we can help you show your customers and clients appreciation any time of the year with a custom order from Little Cattle Co. delivered to them, and we will add a custom note in those orders from you. Also, partner of a printing company called On the Path Printing. We've talked about that a few times. Josh Strasburger and I started it. You can find us on Instagram at On The Path Printing. Send us a message. Let us know what you need. Also, Leif, Jocko, and I have a company called Bruiser Arms. You can check us out on Instagram. It is at Bruiser Arms. Send us a message to just to learn more about the custom gear packages we offer.
They're so freaking cool.
I have one coming soon. And also,
that's what I want for Christmas.
And also,
if you can work that out,
we all do, bro.
Yeah.
And also the custom training classes that we can provide to you and your groups. Also want to thank Origin and Jocko Fuel for all the support they gave us and give us. What they have done is absolutely incredible. 100% American-made gear. 100% made in America. Hunt line, pants, boots, jeans, just belts, wallets, hoodies, t-shirts, workout gear,
flannels for like 10 minutes.
Yeah. Whatever. Thanks a lot, Pete Roberts, for being super popular.
Unbelievable, Peter.
Also, make sure you check out Jocko Fuel.
I'm upset with him. I'm calling him by his full name.
JockoFuel.com. Check out those supplements, the cleanest supplements, cleanest energy drinks on the market. It's been incredible to watch that company grow. And, as we close it out, I just want to remind you guys to think about what Lucas said is you can create the culture of extreme ownership anywhere that you're at. Now, it's great to go seek it out and find it and be a part of it, but also at the end of the day, it's on you. If not you, then who? If you're not going to create it, if you're not going to build it, if you're not going to actually take ownership and drive ownership and create a culture, who's going to? It's on you 100%. And I hope that this episode has been a reminder for you guys to go out there and do the work and to never settle. This has been the JP Dinnell Podcast, episode 57.